Hey Eli, I know you kind of mentioned it there, but what are some of the things that you've liked to do to unwind during these bye weeks? It's kind of become a fixture in your career here at Navy.
Yeah, the biggest thing is really just taking care of your body, getting in the training room as often as you can. Just got in there and kind of getting ahead of things, not letting little injuries turn into big injuries. I think that's the biggest thing. And then for me, just like, getting away from football, trying to get done with your school as early as you can at night, and then, maybe unwinding, watch a show or a movie or something, always good for your mental health too. So.
Go back to that Tulsa game for a moment. What impressed you the most about Blake's demeanor in particular after those two interceptions, after the fumble? What did you notice on the sideline and what did you notice in the huddle?
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. I think his presence, we were obviously did not start the game off real well, but his presence was kind of calming, I guess you could say. He was just very relaxed and kind of working, focusing on the next kind of drive and not really thinking about the things that just happened. I think that kind of just goes to show, his senior leadership and how long he's been doing this. So, just he's in command of our offense, and when things aren't going well. I think a lot of people, are looking towards him and asking him why, but he just kind of, stayed calm, stayed focused on the drives we had coming up.
You play a very unique position in the game of college football, whether you're making plays in the receiving game or in the rushing game. Who are some players, maybe around college ball or up in the pros, that you try and model your game after?
Yeah, the first one is definitely Christian McCaffrey. I grew up watching him back at Stanford, and then all the great things he's been doing in the NFL. I think his versatility is really unmatched. Whether it's lining up in the backfield or the way he's catching the ball. He just does a lot of great things, and I think he's a guy you want to kind of model yourself on the field. Obviously, he's a fantastic player, but he's just doing all the things he needs to off the field as well. And then I've always liked Debo Samuel as well. I think he's a really interesting guy. I think they move him around a lot, and try and get him the ball in space. I think he's another guy I try to model myself after a little bit.
Thank you.
Yep.
Scott Wyckoff.
Eli, as you come into the bye week, you talked about the importance of it physically. How do you guys like the kind of the starting and stopping that the bye week does, where you've been on a pretty good roll now, 3-0 off to a good start? Does it take away from that momentum, or do you think the positivity of having that chance to rest your body outweighs that?
Yeah, I think it's really just what you make of it. I think that's the biggest thing is, some teams might really just completely take off mentally during these bye weeks. But the phrase that Coach Cole throws around whenever these bye weeks come around is it's a get better week. And I think that's a great way to kind of look at it, really identify the things that, we've been struggling with as a position group or as a unit, and just, go and really attack it in practice. So I think that's something that we're really looking to do. It's just finding that right balance of, physically kind of letting your body heal a little bit, but also still looking for things and ways to get better.
What's the one thing that you want to improve on as you move through this week?
I think a big thing for us would be maybe starting fast. Obviously this past game wasn't the way we'd like to start a game. We start off a little bit slow, and it's something that Coach Newberry preaches as well. So getting out to practice, not taking 20, 30 minutes to get warmed up and like dropping some balls to start practice, just coming out ready to roll and just getting started at practice. I think that'll help carry it over into games.
How do you like so far how the ball's been moving around? Coach Cronick seems like he's getting the ball in everybody's hands. Some people say, well, then that means you don't get in as much, but it seems like that opens up more opportunities for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that spreading the ball around is always a good thing. I think that's when our offense is working the best. I think that it is when we are spreading it out to all the snipes, the X, the B back, and the quarterback, obviously. So I've always been a fan of spreading it out, and then kind of from a personal standpoint, that really just allows for other things to open up because when they start focusing on me or chat, that's when Alex will pop for a big run, vice versa. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of spreading it out.
Thanks.
Sir.
Wyatt Kopelman.
Hey Eli, when Navy was down 14 nothing in the first quarter against Tulsa, what were the voices in the huddle like? You mentioned how Blake just had this calm demeanor when it came to focusing on going kind of 1-0 on the next drive. What were the voices in the huddle like, and were you one of them?
Yeah, a big thing that I was, saying a little bit, you know, trying not to get all worked up and, worried. I think that kind of the perspective I was looking at it from was that we had been there before, right at the end of last season with the Oklahoma game. We started off pretty poor and we were down to a really, really good team. And we came back and ended up winning that game. So that's what I was trying to preach that a little bit, just remembering that we just did this last year. It's not some crazy big feat to come back from two scores. So just kind of remaining calm and not getting super psyched up in our own heads.
How much did Drew Cronick refer to that Oklahoma game? Did it come up at all in the huddle, as a matter of fact?
Not from a coaching standpoint. He didn't mention it at all. I think it was just the players. We kind of brought it up a little bit. Just trying to remind ourselves that go out there and turn this game around.
And as you started 13 games last year and now you're back in your starting role, it seems like there's a lot of drive within this team and this returning starters, Alex, you, Blake, to carry over what you had last season. How would you say your role in the offense has evolved from last year to now?
That's a great question. I think overall, I feel like it is a very similar role on the field when you're kind of just looking at X's and O's. I think I'm doing a lot of the same things. I think maybe the only difference is I might be getting a few more handoffs in game, maybe some of that nature. Um, but I think, personally, and then kind of talking to the other seniors, it's really just our role as leaders. We're the guys that all the other younger dudes are looking up to. So just kind of, being there and setting the tone for them in that sense is really the biggest way I think, my role has changed from last year to now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wags.
Eli, you're kind of a master of the jet sweep, and that's a very a play that has to be perfectly in sync because you got to hit it at the exact same right moment. Can you talk about that play and why you seem to be so adept? I don't think you ever lose yardage on that play.
Yeah, I've definitely I think that's probably the play that I've run the most in this offense, if I had to guess. And it's something that I think it starts off with practice. We rep that same play over and over and over again. I'd say every single day we get at least a handful of reps with it. And the biggest thing is the timing of it, the timing of the snap, making sure that Blake is snapping it at the right time to where that I'm barely getting the football and I can get on the edge, the perimeter as fast as possible. I think that's really the most important thing. And then kind of like a big thing too is a lot of the times teams will kind of over pursue that jet sweep a little bit. So sometimes your those safeties will be flying down. You can just stick your foot in the ground and get right upfield. That's another thing I'm kind of looking for. Maybe watching film or in games as well.
So, kind of, why does that seem to be such a successful play for Navy? Is it just that there's more blockers than defenders usually? The way it works, it's that you outnumber them on the perimeter over there.
Yeah, I think the big thing is Coach Cronick setting it up. Really just running the ball up the middle all play and kind of getting those defensive linemen and then kind of like secondary players to condense in a little bit and get focused on maybe the B back or the quarterback running it up the middle. So I think that's the biggest thing is kind of setting it up first. But whenever we get the look we want, and just it's a numbers game from there and getting on the edge.
So when the timing is off, like what happened with the fumble with Blake and Chad, is that just a case of somebody hit the spot too fast, or the snap was late, or what did from your perspective what went wrong there?
So watching film on that play, Hoke Smith, his hand, when he was going down the line, like barely hit the ball, and I think that caused Blake to either be late on the handoff or to knock it out. But that was the main reason. It was really just a small kind of just unfortunate mishap.
Thanks.
Eli, everyone talks or has written and talked about how you and Alex are similar. How are you guys different?
Well, that's a good question. Um, I'm trying to think. I think kind of more on the fun side. I think we listen to a lot of different music. I think our music tastes are very different, so that's more of a fun piece. But we really are similar. Like sometimes I feel like our parents will say we're like two old men in a sense. We get along, and then we'll start like bickering. But there's really not too much that's jumping to mind where we differ. Um, yeah, I don't know.
We're we're for the same team, pretty much. So music's it, right?
Yeah.
Um, Last year, most of your touchdowns came on receiving. This year, they've all come on rushing. Why do you think that's been different this year so far after 3 games?
I think it's a mix of two things. Kind of just based off of the defenses that we played. I think that running the ball has kind of favored us a little bit more. And then I think this year, just kind of in particular, I've gotten kind of direct handoffs maybe a few more times. Like I know in VMI, the way we game planned it, I got a handful of direct handoffs, and I feel like I'm getting pitches more often. So I think that's probably the biggest reason would just be getting the ball more in the run game.
Even though you are aware that you're 2 touchdown catches away from tying the school record for career touchdown receiving.
Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing about that at the start of the season. It's pretty crazy. I'm that close already.
We'll go back around. Tim Nolan, thank you. Tim Nolan.
Eli, how has the game slowed down for you in your senior season?
It's a good question. It's kind of hard to describe. That people talk about like the game slowing down all the time, especially as you get older, and I really don't know why. It's just it's kind of like the defenders seem to you're able to process that information a little bit faster. I think that's really what it comes down to. You're just kind of having that a little bit more confidence on the field, and I think that just allows you to process that information a little bit faster. But yeah, I'm not really sure too why. Maybe there's some sort of like sports science thing that goes into it, but
Well, I think one thing that might help is the O-line in front of you. I mean, that group has been fantastic, paving the way. What in your mind do you think has unlocked that much success? I feel like so many times we asked you guys in the preseason, how is the new O-line holding up? And they've done fantastic through 3 games.
yeah, I'd say I think it really starts off with the leadership they have, and at the top in their room is Coach G. He's done a fantastic job, I think, just setting the tone, and kind of creating, giving them a little bit of an attitude as an O line. I think that's really important. Is being physical, kind of like tone setting guys, and I think that's what he really preaches to them. And obviously, he really knows what he's doing from an X's and O standpoint. And then, kind of down to the player led leadership, I think. Obviously Purvis and then Hoke Smith just doing a great job in there, kind of leading those guys from the front and setting the tone on that end as well.
4 teams right now in the American off to a 3-0 start. How much do you and your teammates keep an eye on what others are doing around the league, especially in a bye week?
I've never been one to keep up with the teams like a lot. I'd say I'll check the scores maybe on Sundays after all the games have been played. But I think the big thing for us is just focusing on what we're doing. And then when the time rolls around to play those teams, obviously doing the research and the film study that you need to be doing for that particular week. But for us, I think we do preach it as a team a little bit, but just focusing on ourselves is really important.
Thanks, Eli.
Sure.
Aimless, faceless opponents.
No
Scott
doubt.
Wyckoff.
Eli, what does it mean to you and the offense to be going into the meat of the season now with the same exact coaching staff, the same voices that you had last year when you went into this part of the season?
Yeah, that's definitely huge for us, and I think it's pretty simple. It's really just trust, both ways. The trust that the coaches are going to have in us to do what they're coaching us to do, and then for us to trust the coaches. I think it's really important and something that my class didn't necessarily have the first few years with all the coaching changes and whatnot. So I think that's definitely big for us going into this part of the season.
How much do you guys like it, and how effective is it when you guys get something new that you've been working on for a few weeks that no one's seen before that you implement in a game? Is that pretty exciting when you know you're going to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now that our offense has been in the league for a year now, and coaches are able to scout us a little bit and kind of have a decent understanding of what we're doing, being able to put something new in, and then obviously being able to go and execute it in a game is a great feeling. Um, I feel like it's like Coach Chronic is almost like an evil scientist sometimes, cooking up new plays in the lab with all the coaches, and then we get to go out and do it. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yep.
Wyatt Kopelman.
Eli, as a senior, how do you bring along younger players who are just learning what Navy football is all about, especially when you now have a week off before taking on your next opponent?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the big thing there is really kind of setting the tone in your actions and what you're doing every single day. And a lot of the time these younger guys are kind of gonna they're not really gonna ask a lot of questions, but they're just gonna look at what you're doing and then assume that what you're doing is the correct thing. So, if you're in the wrong, most of the time those younger dudes are gonna go and look at you and be like, oh, he's doing this, so this must be right. So just kind of making sure that you're choosing the right every day, and a lot of the times those guys will just follow suit right after.
How do you think they respond to constructive criticism, whether it's from senior leadership like you, Alex Blake, or even Drew, whether he sees something that he knows that an opponent or future opponent's gonna definitely detect if it's not done right?
I think this team is pretty great with constructive criticism. I think we have guys that know how to handle it. That might stem from us all being in the military, and I think we're getting critiqued a lot here, compared to other schools. So I'd say that the majority of the kids on this team do a really good job of taking what they're maybe messing up at, and then getting critiqued, and then going out and applying it. So I would say that most guys here do a really good job of that.
And this offense seems to demand a ton of precision when it comes to executing, extending drives. What do you think is going to be the biggest key for this team to carry that consistently into this next week?
Um, it really just starts with practice. Not getting distracted by the fact that we don't have a game this week. Just going out and kind of treating it like a normal week, maybe a little bit. Just maybe approach it like you have a game on Saturday, and try not to switch up your mindset too much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wags.
I've seen professional scouts, NFL scouts, out at practice quite a bit over the course of preseason and into when season begins. It's almost every time I've been out there, I've seen one. From talking to the coaches, I think you're one of the people they're looking at. Have you thought about pro football? I mean, Rayon Lane is playing right now.
Yeah. Playing the NFL has always been a dream of mine growing up. Started playing football in first grade, been a Steelers fan my entire life. So playing in the NFL would absolutely, be a dream. It's definitely a dream of mine, and it would be a privilege for sure. So it's something that I'm thinking about, but really I have kind of my priorities are just really focused on, this season, and, the goals that we have as a team. And I think if, going out and achieving those will help me, down the line. It'll kind of just that NFL dream might take care of itself if I really, focus on the things ahead of me right now.
So you mentioned Christian McCaffrey and his versatility, and that's kind of what you bring to the table is versatility. And you think of guys like Julian Edelman and some of the slot receivers whose quickness and ability to get open and do those kind of things is that they had pretty nice careers doing that. Do you think that if you were to have an opportunity, that would be the key is that you're versatile and bring a lot of different things to the table?
Yeah, I think that could, absolutely be something that I could do if I go and play at the next level. I think, just kind of looking at it, whatever those teams, if whatever they need me to do, just going out and being able to do that, I'm sure that would be very valuable to them.
Well, and on the topic of versatility, punt returning, I thought that was something you might do this year. You did it at the beginning of last season. Any reason why you're not returning punts? Is Chat just better at it?
That's a good question. We didn't really discuss it too much. Why? It's just Chat was put in the punt return slot over the summer, and that's been his position now. And honestly, from my end, no complaints. I think so far he's done a fantastic job. He's when he gets the ball in his hand, he's truly a special player. So there's I don't know honestly what the reasoning is for the coaches, but as looking at Chad, I think he's done a really great job so far.
Well, one last thing for me on this topic of Brandon. I mean, whether he's running the ball or in a blocking role, I've never seen anyone sacrifice their body. I mean, he's like a torpedo. Even though he's not that big, he's violent with the way he seeks and destroys. What can you say about the physicality a guy 5'9", whatever he is, plays with?
Yeah, he's just a special player. It's hard to describe him, as a player. I think, like you said, across the board. Obviously, we've all seen the plays he made with the ball in his hands, making people miss. But the way he attacks, blockers is pretty crazy. And I think a good way to kind of describe him would be like a honey badger. They say like the honey badger just doesn't care. It's not the biggest animal in the animal world, but it just goes out and does its thing. So I'd say that's a pretty good way of describing Brandon Chapman. It is crazy to see him go out and block in the manner that he does. It really is just impressive.
Thanks.
Officially, Chapman is 5'9", 174 is the official height and weight.
Yeah.
Eli, just a couple more from me. Your mom and dad are everywhere. They're at every home game, every road game. How much has their support meant to you and helped you through the 4 years here?
Yeah, they've been fantastic, just across the board. Supporting me. It's tough going to school here. I think that's everyone knows that, but just having those two supporting figures in my life has been fantastic. And then knowing that they're going to be at every home game it's awesome. Some kids aren't able to see their parents or their families that often, and being able to see mine pretty much every weekend, every other weekend in the fall it's truly a blessing. So I'm very thankful to have them by my side with me.
And then obviously you and Chad are both seniors. Talk a little bit about the young guys behind you and the future of that position.
Yeah, there's some studs coming up for sure. I think some names that come to my mind would be Isaiah Bryant, Charles Robinson, Mikey Barrow, TK Hodges. There's guys coming up that are going to do good things when me and Chad are gone. I think that they're special with the ball in their hands, but they're able to go out and do all the things that we need to do as snipes. They can run routes, and I don't know if you guys saw the play, but Mikey Barrow knocked the heck out of one of the backers for Tulsa. I think he might have knocked him out. It was pretty crazy. So there's gonna be no shortage of physicality and playmaking in our room in the future. So
I definitely saw that. I actually asked him about it, and he said he never saw it coming. The
yeah,
other guy.
yeah.
Anyone have any other questions for Eli? All right. Thanks a lot, Eli. Great job. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back at 2:30 with Coach Cronick.
Thanks, guys.